Good morning. My name is John Capers, and it is my pleasure to be your student speaker this year. Before I begin my remarks, I would like to acknowledge the land that we stand on and the peoples forcefully removed for us to be here today. For those unfamiliar at Colorado College, we have made it a tradition to acknowledge the land we stand on as the unceded territory of many indigenous tribes. It is with this acknowledgement that we begin conversations and understandings of the spaces we inhabit. Colorado College is located on the unceded land of the Ute people, and it should be noted that our college and our education continued at the expense of their existence and way of life. Today, our celebration, while joyous, should always consider the erasure of these cultures, languages, and peoples, and as our education taught, to find new ways of highlighting these marginalized voices until justice is rightfully served. While writing this short speech, I recall constantly meeting roadblocks. The words that I wanted to say eluded me because how can I come up on this stage and put this monumental 4 years into just a few words, especially when these 4 years were fundamental in their development as a peer, scholar, and person. What I can say is that while writing this, I was flooded with many amazing memories of my time here. I recall one snowy evening when me and a bunch of friends decided to go and sled down Preserve Hill with nothing more than a few sleds, excitement, joy, and each other. Another memory was me taking a geology class, my very first one, and I went to CC's Baca campus, connected with my peers some more, and we played in the great sand dunes after learning why and how this magnificent natural beauty was there. Another really amazing memory was under the spectacular Dr. Heidi Lewis while studying abroad in Berlin, learning the hidden narratives slumbering under the German capital and being able to spray paint a part of the old German Berlin Wall. And during my semester abroad in Germany, I never thought I would lay on the beach of the German island Rügen while exploring the natural beauty of Jasmund National Park, learning about the environmental, political history of Germany, nor that I would meet fantastic people from around the world that I could not only call my friends, but my family. I also can't forget that very first day, arriving at CC for the Bridge Scholars Program and meeting other amazing people just like me who I continue to call friends to this day. Or even running for student body representative and finding ways to serve my community and leave a positive multi-generational change for those to come after me. Through these and many other experiences, I think CC became a place where I discovered more about myself, especially as a Black man in this country. I met astounding people of color at my institution who have transformed me from someone who once despised his skin tone to one that sees it as his greatest attribute. I learned at CC to love myself more than ever, and how to love others with sincerity and respect. My story is simply one of many at Colorado College. What we have gained from our 4 years in education that is not only transformative in our minds, but something that fundamentally changed what it means to be human. The class of 2021, I hope that your time at CC was worthwhile and as life-changing as my own. I want to say thank you to every single last one of you. Whether we interacted or not, I truly believe we have all impacted each other in small and big ways. Each day, I was inspired by all of you to be my best. Some of you will continue on to be the next politicians, the next Steve Jobs and Bill Gates, the next doctors making groundbreaking medicines, the next public health experts to create a healthier society, the next geologists who will uncover the mysteries of our home, and the next activists who will continue to fight for what is just and for what is right. I can't be more grateful to all of you for being my peers. I can't be more grateful to call some of you my friends, and I can't be more grateful to call you my CC family. Always know, once a tiger, always a tiger, that if any of you need to call on someone, you call on your family, and even myself. Though please refrain from calling me at 2 a.m. I'm losing my hair, but I don't want to lose my sleep, so just keep that in the daytime, please. Please. But before I go, I do want to take some time to note this very scary, wild, and terrifying world that we are going into. The COVID-19 pandemic has revealed some pretty deep scars within our society, and in a lot of ways, it is on us to go forth and heal those scars. It is terrifying to think that, but there is one major lesson that I learned at CC. We never give up. No matter how late it might be, no matter what the task might be, no matter how much is going on around us and in our personal lives, we find a way to persevere, challenge the norms, to produce inquisitive questions with even more bombastic answers. But please, do not feel the pressure on just your shoulders. You have an entire family of people here who will be there alongside you, fighting the good fight and making the world a better place for everyone. But for those that are stressed out with that statement, do what we've always been told. Take a deep breath and take it one at a time. Please, look around you. See your friends, see your professors, see your family, and feel those in your heart who are not with us today. Cherish them, love them, and never let them go. And always stay true to yourself and to them. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay happy, and celebrate yourselves today. I love you all, and I can only say good luck to the world because they aren't ready for what we will bring it.
Once I thought I'd never grow tall as this fence. Time dragged heavy and slow. But April came and August went before I knew just what they meant. And little by little I grew. Time could go. Once I thought I'd never go outside this fence. This space was plenty for me. But I walked down the road one day, and just what happened I can't say, but little by little it came to me, that line between the earth and sky came beckoning to me. Now the time has grown so short, the world has grown so wide. I'll be graduated soon. Why am I strange inside? What makes me think I'd like to try to go down all those roads beyond that line above the earth and beneath the sky? built upon the graduation platform stand. I know my hand will shake when I reach out to take that paper with a ribboned band. Now that all the learning's done, oh, who knows what will now begin? Oh, it's so strange. I'm strange inside. The time has grown so short. The world so
Hi everyone. I want to begin with acknowledging that we are on the unceded territory of the Ute peoples. This institution and the American nation that we exist within are founded upon the erasure and exclusion of indigenous peoples. Now, it is my great honor today to introduce you all to this year's Baccalaureate speaker, Professor Nadia Gassous. In Politics of Piety, the post-colonial feminist anthropologist Saba Mahmood thanks her mentors and teachers by saying, "I feel a profound sense of gratitude towards my mentors and teachers, without whom I would never have quite learned what it means to stay with a problem, to dwell on its multiple complexities, to push against one's own inadequacies of comprehension, and moreover, to savor the slow process of discovery." Professor Nadia Gassous is one of those mentors who passes on this pedagogical tradition and encourages her students to critically rethink and decenter dominant frameworks. Professor Gassous joined the Feminist and Gender Studies Department at Colorado College in 2015. She received her PhD in anthropology from Columbia University in 2011. Before she joined Colorado College, she taught at Amherst College, New York University, Rutgers University, Columbia University, Barnard College, and Princeton University. At CC, Professor Gassous teaches many thought-provoking courses, including critical feminist methodologies, the discourse of the veil, gender controversies, and the politics of transnational feminism. Professor Gassous not only engages in rigorous intellectual thoughts, but her students also describe her classroom as a space that nourishes art and activism. Indeed, Professor Gassous always seeks to de-exceptionalize academia and values various forms of knowledge, from the lived experience of those who have been marginalized, from poetry to anti-war activism. I am not the student who has spent the most time with Professor Gassous, and yet my life is so much reoriented because of her and the many post-colonial scholars' work that she introduced to me. It is no exaggeration to say that Professor Gassous shakes her students' hearts in a good way in every one of her classes. As a transnational post-colonial feminist scholar, Professor Gassous introduces to us the different forms that power can take, including colonialism, imperialism, liberalism, secularism, humanitarianism, and so much more. She unpacks for us the always entangled relationship between oppression and resistance, and she teaches us to always keep a critical eye on the tendency of modern power to conceal itself. She challenges us to ask uncomfortable questions to render the familiar strange rather than the other way around, and to always think about the unequal distributions of burden and of pain. One of the privileges of having her in a liberal arts institution is that for many of us, she is not only a professor, but also a kind, understanding, and caring mentor. Professor Gassus is always available for her students' burning questions and concerns. She always takes into consideration her students' individual circumstances of learning. She values her students' unique positionalities and the embodied knowledge that we bring to the classroom and individual meetings. Her engagement with rigorous intellectual thoughts is more than just a job for her, but a way of living. In Sarah Ahmed's words, she constantly asks and leads her students to ask ethical questions about how to live better in an unjust and unequal world. So now, I invite you all to join me and welcome Professor Nadia Gassus.
Thank you, Tiani, for your generous introduction, and congratulations on your own hard-earned graduation. Working with students like you who think of learning as an ethical process of grappling, self-transformation, and decolonization, rather than an opportunity for mastery and the acquisition of cultural capital, is the part of my job that I cherish the most. I am greatly honored to be here today in celebration and honor of the class of 2021. I would like to begin by thanking co-presidents Edmonds and Moore for inviting me to be part of this occasion. Many thanks as well to my colleague Brenda Soto and her team for their hard work in planning this event and making it possible for us to gather virtually. I would also like to extend a warm welcome to the friends and family of our graduates who are watching this baccalaureate celebration from afar. I wish we could all be gathered today in Shove Memorial Chapel, exchanging proud smiles and feeling the power of our collective energy. But I'm also grateful that we are able to be here together in this way. If this pandemic has taught us anything, it is that now more than ever, we need to prioritize collective well-being, and that connection can take many shapes and forms. Thank you for the trust that you have invested in us as an institution over the years. I hope you will find that we have lived up to at least some of our promises, and that the education we as a community have provided to your loved ones was worth your many sacrifices and investments. No individual journey is possible without the communities and ancestors who have made them possible, and so every individual graduation here today is also in that sense a collective one. And last, but certainly not least, I want to thank and congratulate our wonderful 2021 graduates. Thank you for dedicating the past few years of your life to the important, joyful, liberating, but also at times painful work of learning and the pursuit of knowledge. I hope you will remember this period of your life fondly, and that the many relationships you built here will remain meaningful and sustaining to you after graduation. I know that we certainly want you to stay in touch. I also hope you will take the time to be proud of all that you have accomplished and survived as students, especially in the past difficult year. While education is a privilege that is not accessible to many when it should be a right for all, the task of learning is one that demands both courage and humility from those who embark upon it. Unless one is seeking merely to confirm one's pre-existing knowledge, learning requires taking risks, embracing the unknown, grappling with doubt, asking difficult questions, and becoming haunted by histories that others would prefer to forget. Learning invites us to be vulnerable, to be uncomfortable, to let ourselves become moved, if not unraveled, to dwell in paradoxes, aporias, and indeterminacies, to make mistakes along the way, and to get lost while searching for meaningful paths. Learning is an embodied, visceral, and affective experience that involves our whole selves and leaves no part of our body, mind, souls unaffected. It is an arduous process under normal circumstances. Now, what counts as normal, of course, varies greatly, and these are not differences we should erase or downplay. We should resist the temptation to look back at the time before the pandemic in ways that erase the pain, suffering, or violence that were already there. Indeed, while for many of you, the pandemic has brought about unprecedented levels of stress, trauma, and hardship, for some of you here today, your normal circumstances, if we want to call them that, already entailed navigating hardships and challenges, like juggling multiple jobs, worrying about paying your bills or about your family and friends back home, dealing with a chronic illness that at times made it hard for you to keep up with the block plan, feeling alienated or feeling isolated. Your normal entailed having a first-hand experience of the unequal distribution of risk, comfort, opportunity, community, mobility, as well as innocence and recognition. Your struggles, in other words, did not begin with the pandemic. They were only accentuated by it. Furthermore, some of the pandemic adjustments might have even provided you with some relief. Still, while being mindful of the dangers of either homogenizing or exceptionalizing the pandemic and its effects, what you have all had to endure as students this year as you navigated the sorrow, losses, traumas, and disruptions of a devastating global pandemic that has killed over 3 million people worldwide, and these numbers, as we know, are growing and most certainly underreported, and that has led to historically unprecedented rates of unemployment, is beyond extraordinary. Yet, while dealing with multiple losses, disruptions, anxiety, fatigue, weariness, isolation, learning how to grieve and mourn from afar, and grappling with a world that was exploding with the violence of racial injustice, xenophobia, global inequality, and settler colonialism, you found ways to keep learning, growing, and reflecting by going to class, giving presentations, crafting papers, making art, taking exams, writing stories, going to the lab, doing research, composing music, all while supporting your peers and being there for one another. You kept fighting for justice, organizing for social change, and giving back to our communities both on and off campus. You were creative and resilient. You showed tenacity and fortitude. You improvised and adapted overnight to new ways of being and learning in the world. You hopefully adjusted your expectations, showed grace towards yourself and others, and did what you could rather than what you thought you should. You also created different ways of connecting to each other and finding community while being physically apart. You rid yourself of what you had imagined your senior year looking like, surrendered to the demands of the present moment, and in doing so, perhaps, came to experience what the Black feminist scholar Jennifer Nash describes as the liberatory powers of letting go, or what Muslims around the world describe as freedom through submission. This graduation celebration, in other words, is no ordinary event. It is a testament to your dedication, creativity, and resilience in extraordinary times when we have had to rethink most of our ways and to cultivate new forms of being and becoming. And so today is a celebration of you. This day is also a living embodiment of the power and beauty of learning and of being in community with each other around the pursuit and collective production of knowledge. The history of knowledge is, of course, saturated with violence, inequalities, hierarchies, legacies, and power relations that conceal themselves through universalizing, disembodied, and unmarked claims to truth, innocence, and purity. Knowledge has and continues to be used to inflict harm on marginalized communities, to justify violence and domination, and to create hierarchies. Yet, the quest for knowledge can also sustain us and give us life, as well as reason to rejoice, even amid unbearable and unrelenting tragedy. Knowledge, as the Black feminist Audre Lorde has taught us, can be liberatory and replenishing. It can provide us with a fullness and depth of feeling that once we have experienced it, we crave to reproduce it in other domains of our life. In the days and weeks ahead, take some time to celebrate all of this, your dedication to your learning, the fortitude, tenacity, and bravery that you have shown, and the journey of self-transformation on which you have embarked. At the same time, I want to encourage you to think beyond binaries, to allow yourself a capacious understanding of what this day is about, to not think of celebrating, mourning, and reckoning as mutually exclusive or as canceling each other out. It is therefore in that spirit that I want to also encourage you to take the time and space to rest, to slow down, to mourn, to grieve, to process, and not just to keep going. Hold space for those experiences, hopes, and expectations that you had to let go of. Engage in practices that will nourish your soul, replenish your body, connect you to your communities, and remind you of who you are and where you come from. While it is customary to see graduation as a turning point that inaugurates the launching of individual pursuits, I hope that you will consider not moving on so quickly, staying in the moment a little bit longer, not fully succumbing to the future-oriented imperative of productivity and self-optimization in the teleological march towards individual progress. According to the Merriam-Webster Dictionary, to graduate means to pass from one stage of experience, proficiency, or prestige to a usually higher one. The focus, in other words, is on moving on and passing from one stage to another. I, in turn, want to invite you to dwell in this moment, to sit with what being a student in pandemic times has taught you about yourself and about the world, and to ponder the possibility that this progressivist script, which places emphasis on forging ahead, need not overdetermine your vision of the future. Instead, I encourage you to consider what liberatory possibilities, forms of healing, intimacy, alliances, freedom, and fullness, surrendering that script with its focus on individual development and overcoming might enable for you. Indeed, if this pandemic has shown us anything, it is that our lives are intimately connected, that our survival depends on each other and not just on ourselves, and that a valuing of productivity, autonomy, and the pursuit of happiness and individual success above all else, including life, justice, healing, and equality, can and does have devastating consequences for the world. While it is true that we have all had to alter our ways to protect ourselves and our communities from the threat of the virus, it is imperative that we remember that our individual survival in this pandemic has depended on the unequal distribution of risk and exposure. Those of us lucky enough to still be living today have literally been kept alive by those whose forms of labor have been historically devalued. Farmers, factory workers, food, health, and other care workers, both here and in the global South, who have kept us alive while being disproportionately exposed to the risk of infection. This has been true on our own campus as much as it has been true across the world. So instead of moving on to this next stage of your life and focusing on your next move, how about you take some time to dwell in the insights that this pandemic has revealed? How might you imagine a future that honors, protects, and celebrates our interconnectedness and the relationships between our struggles? What might this reorientation away from the individualization of life and success make possible for you and others? And what might it look like? How can you ensure that you do not get fully conscripted into the project of forgetting that keeps us alienated from each other and preoccupied merely with our own personal flourishing and so-called productivity? What has made your survival possible, and how are you going to commit to make the survival of others possible moving forward? These might seem like lofty ideas, luxuries of thought and of the imagination that feel inaccessible to you in these times of cumulative exhaustion. You might be tempted to think or hear from others that not moving on is a sign of weakness, if not a failure. But what if we thought about our grief and exhaustion as a source of knowledge, as a potentiality for being otherwise, as a space of freedom from the usual and the just so, and as a reminder that our world is actually not okay? What if we did not think of our exhaustion as something we need to individually overcome in order to get back to our lives, but rather as a radical and ethical space of potentiality and reorientation that is telling us that something is out of sync? As I have spent the past few weeks and days preparing for this occasion, reflecting on this past year, and thinking about what it means for me to share this moment with you at this conjuncture, I have found myself repeatedly wondering if my words here today will be found too grave, too encumbered, not celebratory or uplifting enough. I kept trying to write words that were not as saturated with the specificity of this moment, but to no avail. I tried to write words that might better align with the expectation that now is a time of celebration and not of dwelling on the hardships and the suffering that are all around us, but with no success. Eventually, I had to embrace my failure to come to terms with the fact that as a post-colonial and transnational feminist scholar who actively resists the idea of universal and disembodied knowledge, who does not think that one can or should speak or write from nowhere, an uplifting and optimistic speech is just not the graduation speech that I can write. Everything that I'm thinking and feeling right now is embodied and situated in these pandemic times. And so it is from that deeply visceral and embodied embeddedness that I have offered you these parting thoughts. This might be my failure, but as the queer and cultural studies scholar Jack Halberstam has argued in his book, The Queer Art of Failure, under certain circumstances, failing, losing, forgetting, unmaking, unbecoming, not knowing may in fact offer more creative, more cooperative, more surprising ways of being in the world. In fact, if success requires so much effort, then maybe failure is easier in the long run and offers different rewards. End of quote. These might not be the profound and timeless insights that you had perhaps imagined receiving on this type of occasion, but they are what I bring here today. At the very least, I hope that they will invite you to dwell in this moment a little bit longer, to sit with the questions, paradoxes, and indeterminacy that this pandemic has left you with without rushing to resolve them in a quest for certainty, to give yourself permission to fail at the script of individual success and happiness while daring to imagine the purpose of life otherwise, to hold space for your sense of loss and grief, outrage and despair, even as you are celebrating the person you are becoming. In sum, stay a student. Learning is a lifelong journey, not a stage in your life. Slow down, Dwell in the layers and textures of this moment. Listen to your doubts, your disquiet, that gut knowledge that is reminding you that a story always starts before it can be told, as the post-colonial feminist scholar Sarah Ahmed puts it. Don't rush to move on. Don't give in to the binaries. Those are nothing but colonial constructs anyway. Mourn and celebrate. Remember and create. Honor those who came before you and imagine the world, not as you have been told it is, but as it can become. Thank you very much.